here's our Q&A with the writer-director of Grade A, Joe Basla. Nice to meet you, Joe.
Hey, nice to meet you, man.
I have to tell you, just so funny. Just
Oh, man.
such a, I'm sure you've probably gotten this comparison or compliment before, but the writing is so funny. I can't wait to hear how you casted and found this actor, but I felt like you know that feeling you got when like you see a Jim Carrey movie like for the first time, and it's just like, one of those, whether it was Shadyac or Odenkirk writing it for directing him, like from start to finish. This was just like top notch, ridiculous, ridiculous dude comedy. Like you took the ridiculous lead character and just did it perfectly, man. Bravo. I think a lot of people, I would think it'd be important to say that is so much harder than people think.
Well, geez, man, there is just so much to unpack there. I'm so grateful for everything you just said. You know, I just love that type of comedy. For me, like, I, people have actually more compared it, funny enough, to Danny McBride kind of comedy. I really haven't heard too much of the Jim Carrey comparison, which is interesting. But um, I love writing characters that really act out in their emotions that are off-putting to other people, because there's just so much passion behind what they're doing, and if everyone's not getting it, it's like it doesn't even register with them, and that's what's funny to me. You know, is people who take things too serious. I like that approach more than kind of like the slacker comedy, I guess you would say. Where yeah, I just, man, yeah, I guess let me start with someone like with Michael, because Michael got that. Michael kind of got the finesse of someone, like of the character, that he is a good-hearted person by nature, but he's always just in his way, and he just makes these poor decisions because he just acts off of his emotions so much, and has kind of created this bubble world where his view of how things go are not at all true to how they happened. And Michael Reitz is his name, and he just had an amazing way of weaving that kind of like silliness with like the harsh kind of directness that he can give people sometimes, kind of like making him still lovable in a sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's when we're dealing with sci-fi and fantasy and stuff, we often talk about world building. But I
Yeah.
mean, you do I mean, honestly, you do world building here, because
Yeah.
you create a world for this character where, you know, aspiring chef, health inspector, just wants to hang out and smoke cigarettes and become buds with someone, and as soon as they don't want to be his friend, he's just like, I'm gonna bust you.
Yeah, yeah. So I bartend and have bartended for years, man. And for some reason, whenever I worked at this one bar in Hollywood, and whenever we kind of have a buddy system with like the neighboring spots, and when the health inspector was coming around, the neighborhood guys would come over and be like, "Hey, the health inspector's like around." Be like, "Okay, cool." And then we had this manager, Mike, and he'd be like, "Okay, guys, listen, no one freak out. No one freak out. He's going to be here in a few minutes." And then he kind of take a few pauses, be like, "All right, get the fruit on the ice. Everyone start running around. He's going to be here. No one lose their shit." And like, he would just totally like, and I just thought, I was like, man, the power that a person like, and the effect that this person is having, and he's not even here. And usually they're really nice, kind of normal, quieter people. They're never kind of coming in like, "All right, hands up, everyone, no one move, everyone come to the center of the room, I'm gonna check everything." Like, so that response kind of always stayed with me, and I was just like, man, like, what if there was a health inspector who really was that kind of way, who like wanted favors or just friendship on like a basic level, and if he didn't get kind of what he wanted, how would he react to that? Maybe in a blackmail type of way, who knows? And so it kind of all just fell into place and kind of built off of there, like a kind of like you said, building this world where people like take being a chef very seriously. Um, and so that's something that we'll kind of get to in a little bit. Whereas this is basically the first act of the feature script, and where we're going to the accumulation of the chow down and what that is, and it's kind of like this silly like it's almost like a Karate Kid type of like martial arts type of tournament, but with food, and the local people like take it very seriously.
And what's super about your perspective to me is because you have normal, use normal people encountering his bizarro world. And I
Yes.
love that every time his world comes into conflict with theirs, his wins.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
insanity rules, which I would argue if we had like the 65, 75 people in the theater, I'd look out and go, come on, you got to admit it's true. Crazy, like you might think that we can tamp down crazy, but I think society's pretty nuts.
Well, yeah, and I always tell people this when they kind of talk about like the basis for the story. Like, well, my brain just like works a little differently, like in the sense of like I never will forget when I watched Taxi Driver for the first time, and some of the things that he was saying were so outrageously funny to me because like his world view of everything. Like just a quick example. Like he meets the girl in the the political office, and she's kind of dating one of the office guys, and he talked to him for basically 2 seconds before he kind of asked her to go meet her. But when they're kind of at the diner talking and she's just talking about herself, he just kind of cuts her off and he's like, that guy you were speaking to earlier, I don't like him. I don't like him at all. And you're just like, what? Like he's like, I don't think he treats you nice, and I don't think you should be around him. And it's like he just is me. This is a first kind of date, not even a really first date. And it was kind of such this weird off-putting thing, and her reaction to it was very interesting. And so I just think when we watch those type of characters, I think that's a reason why Taxi Driver is what it is because you're following this guy who's just on this kind of road and you don't know where he's going. That was my goal with this, is that even though it's a comedy, the way that it's going is everything is inevitable that happens, but we still don't know, like, oh my God, what is this guy going to do next?
And you keep through your story. I'm glad you already answered the question of is this, because if you told me this was a pilot idea and you wanted to do a half-hour series on this character, I'd believe you.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that it's part of a feature, because what you do is you keep it just expanding it, right? You just keep
Mm-hmm.
expanding the world that he's dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And I love when you bring in, his mom and this and that. Like I just love seeing more and more aspects of his life, and more how like everywhere he turns, it's just him versus the world of.
Exactly, and I think when I set it up that way because the things that you like maybe would lose people a little bit, you're forgiven in a little bit of a sense because you're kind of getting into this world of the direct things that have affected him. Like, oh, if his mom's not very supportive, okay, this makes sense. Oh, she actually knows about his girlfriends. Okay, you know what I mean? So it's pushing the story along, but we're also getting a sense of a little bit of exposition, I guess, dealing with his, how he is and how he became this way.
Yeah, and we're focused on the humor, but I guess I gotta respect the Q&A format and point out or ask you.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, as far as cat, once you finished this script, and it sounds like you decided you wanted to basically shoot like the first act of your feature.
Hmm.
So how did you go about casting? How did you go about getting it to this point?
Well, so it was, it was a full-on feature, and I wrote it, and then I was just like trying to get it, made or sold like everyone else does. And it got to a point where I was just like, you know what? I'm going to try my hardest to make this by myself. And I'm very fortunate. Like I said, I bartend to pay the bills, and I've had great relationships and been fortunate to meet so many nice people in the city of Los Angeles that are bar owners. And the only reason I was even able to do the short was because all the locations were free. And so, these are real working bars and all that stuff. And so it was actually quite a realistic possibility because most of this takes place in bars and restaurants. So I went down that path, and I with really great comedic actors, that you've seen in a lot of Adam Sandler movies, things like that. I don't want to name drop them just because we didn't end up going through with it, and I don't really like to do that. But the problem is in the feature film, a lot of it kind of starts taking place in a Korean barbecue restaurant because he meets this kind of Mr. Miyagi father figure that he's been missing his entire life. That's going to teach him what really cooking is and how to actually do it and kind of become the man he's supposed to be. And that was not something that was possible to fall into the money that we had. So unfortunately, it fell through. And then I ended up doing the short and as a proof of concept to build to pitch with the feature script. Yeah, and so that was last summer. And then I just sort of with my experience I had with going through the feature and cold calling agents and doing all that, it was pretty simple to just kind of do the postings online, backstage and things like that. But I'll tell you, I was so surprised, and I'm also new to this, that, I mean, for Robert, the main character, over 500 people submitted. And I was like, I gulped, I like was shocked. And then from there, I selected about 50 based off their headshots to do self tapes. But I'll tell you what, when I saw Michael Reed's and I saw his self tape, I knew immediately. He just had that balance of like charm and that delivery. He just understood the material, where a lot of people were playing it very angry and very like over the top aggressive. It was just very like sort of like off-putting because, like I said, I think when you deal with that type of humor, and kind of it's really expressive over the top characters, everyone automatically goes to Dan McBride, which is why I've gotten a lot of those comparisons. So I got a lot of people that were just trying to do that. And Michael, he was the first self tape I watched also. And so I just knew it. And then everyone else just kind of same thing. They came in and read, and then I had a couple of them read with Michael. And then before we knew it, we just had a great cast of people that really got the material, and we're excited to be a part of it.
I gotta say, if you had told me uh, when you watch the film, it's hard not to picture that Michael had been involved early on, and that, if you told me he was your best friend of 10 years and you wrote the script with him in mind, that's how good the fit is.
Oh
That's how
wow, yeah,
well he fits the lead.
yeah.
um, but so once you got cast, and it's a, this is a long short. I mean, this is 31 minutes, right? So uh we're running out of time, but everyone always asks at these Q&As,
Yes,
how long did you shoot? How long was post? Like, stuff like that. People always want to know.
certainly. So we shot this 4 days, right? 4 days in a row, back in last August. And we just had a great crew. My buddy Dustin, the director of photography on this, he handled getting all the crew. His kind of department. He worked with a lot of great guys on some TV shows and other short projects and independent films and things like that. And he really saved the day because I'm still coming from a writing standpoint, and this is I directed a feature film before, right before I moved out to LA, but this is the first thing I did in a long time, and the most professional thing I did. Um, the one thing that I will say is that everyone had so much fun, and I mean, we shot this in 4 days. It's very long, but we were out on time. We honored all our commitments, and everyone had a blast doing it. And more than anything of the outcome of the film, how everyone felt on set, and everyone that from just the set PAs to the grips to anyone in the lighting department, everyone just top to bottom, the makeup artists, they just had fun. And that for me is the greatest lesson and the greatest thing to come out of this, because you hear so many negative things about how stressful things can be on set, and just how things are. And I have a lot of people, friends that work in the business, they just tell me, and I'm just like, man, it breaks my heart, because this is the dream, man. Like, this is what I want to do with my life. And so, when people were looking at me and when we wrapped, and they said, this is the most fun that we've ever had on set, and from their shift of their expectations from the beginning to the end, it made my chest explode, man. It just made me feel so great. And then from there, I was fortunate enough that a buddy of mine, he is a CFO at a pretty big post production company here, and they did it very quickly, with very professional grade equipment that I would not have been able to do otherwise. And so, from top to bottom, it was a lot of hard work, and a lot of favors, and a lot of nice people helping to bring this from start to finish.
I got to say, I hope that you heard the silent collective gasp of everyone in the theater when you said 4 days, because a film with this much to it and this many locations and lots of actors, I mean, hurting people in front of a camera, the idea that you got something this good and this long and this funny done in 4 days and everyone had a good time, bravo to you. That's wonderful to hear. I'm not surprised that something that's this delightful to watch was delightful to make, but I can't help but share this, even though we're running out of time, which is hearing you talk about your process of making it. When Carl Reiner passed, I saw a Steve Martin interview where he said they carpooled every morning to the Jerk because they lived near each other.
Mhm.
And every morning, Carl Reiner, even though it was like his 27th film, was behind the wheel of the car, he'd look over and go, "Today we get to make a movie," right? Because making movies should be fun,
They should
you
be
know?
fun, man, and that's oh, I just hope that that we're gonna start having some people. We've had some rough times, obviously, with everything going on right now with this pandemic, and why we're not doing the festival in a theater. But I hope, man, that people start just like living with their hearts, man, and really just focus on making great movies, because they make the difference. And when you make movies with your heart, people feel that, and it has a profound effect on them. I really, and it does, because it does to me. This is why I'm here, and why I want to do this.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. It was a pleasure to meet you and talk to you. Again, I can't tell you, I can't, I can't flatter you enough with what I think you did here. I hinted at it earlier, but you know, I love drama. I love all genres of film, but I think comedy is probably the hardest to make work, because you just to truly make people laugh, you can't come close. An emotional moment when the character passes away, it's like, if you almost get it right, I'm still going to be a little sad.
Sure, certainly,
But to make people laugh, you got to be perfect, and this thing came out perfect.
man. I
So
I, I
congrats.
appreciate that so much.
All right. Well, I wish I didn't have to run, but I kind of do. So,
Okay,
but it was a pleasure, and please communicate to everyone on the crew, and especially your lead actor, how great they did. I feel like if you know, I'm sure you could have made it work with somebody else, but he was just perfect.
oh man, I appreciate everything, and we all are just looking so much forward to seeing how this does in the festival, and having some people see it. So
Super. All right. Well, I'm going to hit stop,
okay,
and then I'll tell you one more thing.
okay, man.